Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Britton's Hangout Hour, episode 87. Again, I can't believe we're already here, guys. But I'm here today with Micah S. Vernon. How you doing today, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing quite well. I have to say, it's been a quiet day,
Mm,
but I did watch a couple of your videos before I came on here because I wanted to prepare a little bit.
yeah.
But it's good to be here. Glad you can make it.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy having me on.
Yeah, I think I discovered your channel not too long ago, and I'm like, this guy seems like an interesting guy to talk to.
Well, I would hope so.
I have to say, I was watching one of your videos. I don't remember which one it is, but you were saying that you sometimes feel you express yourself better in writing than on camera.
Yeah.
I'm the same way. I'm the same way, believe it or not.
Oh, right. Someone who understands, because there's so many people on YouTube and they talk so well, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I have things to say, and I try to, and I feel like I'm not very good at it.
Bullet points. It'll keep you on track. That's what helped me.
Mm.
But Um, I can confirm you do get better at it as you keep doing it. So
Yeah, I have felt it's as I've made more videos, it's feeling a bit more comfortable. It's feeling a bit easier to like. I think it's mostly nervousness when I first turn the camera on. All the words just fall out of my head, but it seems to be getting easier.
yeah, but I know I can see the eye rolls in the comment section where people are like, "Wow, Britton, that's a great, very based statement right there. That's profound." But
But
it is
I think
real.
it's something
It is
new
real
people
though.
need to hear.
You get better at it as you get along.
Because I think that hurdle of making the first couple of videos is like a really big one. And for me, it was because like I think my first video was actually like last year, like halfway through last year, and I didn't make another one until this year because just getting over that initial hurdle is it's a big step to make, and I think it is good for new people to hear that like yeah, it'll get easier.
Oh, very cool. Well, yeah.
Mm.
I did want to ask, like, how did you come up with the like beard? Like, did you like walk out of a western or something?
I just I've always like you always see people with facial hair and they'll have the same style just their whole life,
Uh
and that always kind of depressed me. So whenever I grew facial hair or whenever I shaved, I would try a new style. Um, and then I just kind of really like the mutton chops.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, I can't really grow a lot of facial hair. I mean, I can
Mm.
a little bit, but it kind of just the most I got is like a goatee. So thanks, Gene Pool. But yeah, you actually started your YouTube channel, or well, I guess not too long ago. But I see you had a video from 10 months ago,
Yeah, yeah.
and
I think I technically have one that's even like a couple of years ago, and it's just some music I made. But um,
yeah, I see you have that like kind of like hippie thing going, and then on your next video you have like you look like what you look like now.
yeah, and I got sick of the long hair.
Fair enough, man. I've always tried to keep my hair short. I just
It's easier. It's so much easier.
maybe someday I'll grow it out, but like, I don't know. I don't know.
It's probably worth trying at least once just to see how you feel about it. But
Yeah, I mean,
to me,
I will say I have tried it. It was just still short. It was just kind of longer, and I couldn't deal with it anymore.
yeah,
Maybe I'll
fair.
just do the thing because it just bugs me when it gets down here. Maybe I'll just shave that part, the side of
Oh
my
yeah,
head, and I'll
yeah.
just
No,
let
I
it
get
grow
what you
out up
mean.
here.
Yeah.
See how it goes.
Hmm.
My aunt's always telling me to do that. She wants me to grow out my hair.
Hmm.
But
That's funny because I'm used to family members telling me to cut my hair.
man. But yeah, you started your YouTube channel. Well, I guess 10 months ago. But now
Mm.
you're back
I
with.
started it for real just maybe like last month.
um, but yeah, you got a lot of interesting stuff on your channel so far that I've seen anyway. And
Mm.
you recently got to 50 subscribers. Well, you're at 83
Yeah,
now. So
I'm
congratulations.
at 80 something as of this morning. That's pretty exciting. I think the video I made about cataloging my library seems to be popping off, but by by my standards.
Fair enough. I mean, yeah, I mean, I see you got Why Collect Books. I think I watched a little bit of that. Um, some recommendations. Is that about Gene Wolfe? How form informs that video?
Yeah, yeah. So it's mostly about Gene Wolfe versus a horror book that people have called weird fiction, but I didn't find to be weird fiction. So I wanted to compare how Gene Wolfe writes to this other novel.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, I have a bit of an appreciation for weird fiction myself, but I find a lot of the time, I don't know how familiar with like horror scholarship you are, but um, it does seem that the weird tale often gets conflated to supernatural horror. When I'm like,
Yeah,
well,
I think
there's more to it. Like there's sci-fi that's weird. There's
yeah, yeah.
fantasy that's weird. There's like the weird stuff that William S. Burroughs was doing.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what kind of why I wanted to make that video because I think people had been conflating. They're just like, oh, this has a weird concept. It must be weird fiction. So it was more talking about I think how weird fiction is informed more by like its actual form and how it's written as opposed to just strictly content.
Yeah, exactly. It's a vibe, as the kids would
Mm.
probably say. We said that a lot when I was in high school. So I've only been out for a few years.
Oh, really? How old are you?
I'm 23.
Ah, yeah, nice.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I did think it was interesting that you like Suttree out of Cormac McCarthy's books because you commented on my video the other day about that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I love Suttree. It's to me, it's this.
I
It's
actually
his
read it
most.
last year. I really like. I mean, I still think Blood Meridian is my favorite, but Suttree, like as a prose stylist, I think like Cormac McCarthy was just like it's right up there. Like
Oh yeah,
great as
Suttree.
he
It's his most sort of Faulknerian, but I really like it because it feels the most sort of like a fantasy world. He's turned Tennessee into to this sort of like cosmical place, and it has this underworld that one of the characters is exploring, and I don't know, the characters are just sort of so vivid and strange, and I really love it.
So you have thoughts on the Melon Munter sequence in the book?
I think it's Cormac trying to be his funniest. I think.
Yeah, I was surprised by how funny it was at times.
I think people don't give him credit for how human he is. There seems to be a lot of ideas that he's very nihilistic, but I believe he's very down to earth in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he can be really depressing. I wouldn't say he has like a rosy view of the world, but
No,
I think there is a love for humanity and life in his books. You just have to.
absolutely.
Now, I don't know if I'd say that about like Blood Meridian or anything, but in his other works, yeah.
Yeah, no, Blood Meridian is by far his most depressing, I think, or
Yeah.
maybe The Road if you want to view it a particular way. But I
I actually
think,
think
like,
the road
especially
is
if you
his.
read the
I think
Border trilogy, it's just so full of love for people.
I think the road is his most optimistic book, believe it or not. But then
I
again, I've
haven't
read it
read The
several
Road
times.
in so long that I can't really remember it.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I
Yeah.
think The Road was the first of his I read, and that was all the way back in like 2010 or something.
Fair enough. I guess I've read the road a few times, so yeah.
I should read it again because I did a big reread of all his works a couple of years ago. But then I got to No Country for Old Men and The Road. I was like, oh, well, I've already read them. I don't need to read them again. So,
Yeah, I guess what's nice about those is they like you don't have to like concentrate as hard as you do
mm,
with something like Suttree
the,
because like Suttree, man, I had to
different.
like go back and read passages. I want to read it again at some point because I read it last year for the first time.
Yeah, no,
Um,
Satire, you really have to pay attention. You have to read it slow. You have to really kind of be soaked in by it.
it's really good.
Whereas, yeah,
It's well, like you said, it's probably his most lighthearted, which is kind of weird.
mm. It's also his most depressing in a lot of ways. I also find it strikes a balance. It's just got it's so full of life, and just it's a strangeness to it, but then it's also um, just very depressing at times. Like, oh, I won't mention specific scenes in case people want to read it, but yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah, I did do a discussion about Suttree. Now I kind of feel bad I didn't bring you in on it, but the guy I did it with
Oh,
was
that's all right.
great. But no, it was a good time. But yeah, the video I did watch today was your top 10 books of all time, and I
Oh
noticed
yeah.
that you have a very eclectic taste, which I appreciate because I also have very eclectic reading.
With Ola, I get bored if I stick in the same like lane, you know.
Amen,
I
man.
can't I
I feel
can't
the
be the
same
person
way.
who reads only literary fiction or only fantasy or only science fiction. I have to. It's the same with music. It's the same with film. I have to kind of watch everything. I have to try everything.
I know what you mean. There are books that intimidate me, but aside from that, I'm generally fair game with genre.
What books intimidate you?
Well, you actually mentioned one of them in your favorite books video,
Mm.
and that was Gravity's Rainbow, man. I only read Inherent Vice from Thomas Pynchon, which I
Don't
liked.
be intimidated by Gravity's Rainbow. That is such a fun book.
I,
It
I,
I
I will
think
say I have read Inherent Vice from Thomas
mm,
Pynchon. I don't know if you've read that, but I
I
liked it.
haven't read Inherent Vice yet.
I thought it was pretty good. I want
I
to read
think
more Pynchon. I just don't know where to go. Cause like, oh man,
honestly, I think if you want to try just another one, go with The Crying of Lot 49. That one's it's like his shortest, and it is also very fun, I think. But like Gravity's Rainbow, people just have this idea that, because obviously you're not going to understand everything on a first time read, but I don't think you're meant to. And I want to make a video on like why understanding I think is overrated, because people tend to have this idea that if they don't understand something, they're maybe they think less of themselves or they're not getting it, and then that kind of
then again,
causes them conflict with the reading.
I did read through Blood Meridian, so I guess it can't be too bad. Can't be
Yeah,
too bad.
like it's okay to not understand everything, but because sometimes what's just happening in the book is just fun. It's funny, and it gets very heavy at times, but like it's on a prose level. It's not so difficult to comprehend what's happening. It's more about the grander ideas at play.
I mean, I don't want to tell you what to do, but I would also make a rant about how all the Malazan fans always like undersell it to people, scare people away from it. Because there's some
Yeah, I
cool
think.
stuff in there I've heard about. I haven't read it yet, but I wish people would bring that up more. Because that would probably
Yeah,
sell
no,
more to
I
what people are
absolutely.
reading.
People tend to like they think they want to recommend Malice, and then they're like, oh, it's so difficult to get into, uh, and and this thing might not interest you. I don't know, but like yeah, when I try to talk about books, I try to talk about why I think they're worth reading, because I don't like the idea of difficult literature or difficult books. I want to encourage people to read something because it's fun,
Yeah.
well, not necessarily fun, but interesting at least.
I mean, I guess another one I often think about, but I haven't gone into yet, is like Infinite Jest from David Foster Wallace.
I want to do Infinite Jest soon. I've
Maybe
been interested
someday.
in it so long.
I mean, maybe someday, but I haven't tried it yet. Though I've watched like interviews with David Foster Wallace, and he seems like it seemed, because unfortunately he passed away some years ago.
Hmm.
But he seemed like an interesting guy.
Yeah, no, he's a very, very switched on guy. I've read a little bit of I've read a few of his stories in one of his collections, and he's an interesting writer. But I would like to read Infinite Jest soon.
I've heard he was inspired by Pynchon, so I mean I don't.
Oh yeah, yeah. I haven't read Infinite Jest, so obviously I can't quite say. But I think as a postmodernist, it's kind of hard to be not inspired by Pynchon.
That's true. Yeah, that's funny. Going back to the Suttree conversation I had with a friend of mine, we were talking about McCarthy, and I'm like, is McCarthy? I don't think McCarthy's a postmodernist, but is he? And we were just kind of talking about that. I
I
don't
think
think
he
so.
kind of has, especially in. Have you read The Passenger?
Not yet. I own both of those books, and that like I
Yeah.
told my parents to get paperback. They got the hard cover edition, but whatever. They came in this nice little box, so that was nice.
Mm.
But I haven't read them yet.
All right, so I didn't end up loving The Passenger. It wasn't not my favorite, but it is definitely, I think, McCarthy at his most postmodern. He tries a lot with form in that one, where he's doing something new, and it is very interesting to see him try his hand at this. Um, but I wouldn't call him a postmodernist overall, but he is he's getting there with The Passenger before he sadly passed away.
Indeed, indeed. I mean, I haven't read Ulysses either, though I've wanted to. I really liked Portrait of an Artist as a Young Man when I was younger. I want to
Yeah,
reread that at some point.
you should reread Portrait, because Ulysses is people don't really say this. Ulysses is basically a sequel to it. I
Yeah, and
think
Finnegan's Wake. I'm like, I don't freaking know if I I don't know if I want to read that book. Man.
I I like Finnegan's Wake as I'll never be a serious reader of Finnegan's Wake because it's too complex and dense for me. But
Again,
it's just
like I
on a
said,
surface level,
I've read
it's
like The
very fun.
Wasteland, so again, maybe it won't be too bad. But like, I don't know. I'm just like, I don't know. I'll have to prepare myself for that.
Yeah, no. Ulysses, I think, is very readable. Finnegan's Wake, I wouldn't recommend it to anyone unless they just love puns.
And Dubliners. I want to read Dubliners at some point. I
Mm,
definitely do want to read
Dubliners is good.
Dubliners because I need more short stories in my
Mm.
life.
Well, I'm reading Stephen King's collection at the moment, his new one, and
Or is it any
I was
good?
just thinking last night, something I appreciate about Stephen King is how he's still doing like short stories, and he's still publishing short story collections. I think that's important, because people seem to overlook them. Um, I
Yes,
think it's
I've
good
read
that
some of
like a
his
big
short
writer.
stories. They're very good. The Man in the Black Suit, in particular, I quite enjoy.
I don't think I've read that one.
Oh, it's I won't say what happens, but it's a really good one. Also, I like those. I don't know if you ever read like The Devil and like Daniel Webster, or oh God, what's that Washington Irving story? It's like Tom something and the Devil. Let me look it up. I like old stories like that. It's
Yeah.
basically a modern riff on those kind of stories where it's like you run into the devil and it's kind of this weird little thing.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love short stories. It's just I find it hard to read, say, a lot in a row, because I think whenever I finish a story or a novel, I want a little break. So in short story collections, I'm like, I'm not ready to jump into another story after I've just finished one. I want to sit with it for a little bit.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm not really much of a well, I haven't read a lot of short stories in a while, to be honest with you. The mood hasn't hit me in a while, though. Well, I read Knock 'em Stiff not too long ago, and I consider that a short
Hmm.
story collection. So I guess I did read one not too long ago. Though it was in January.
I don't always succeed, but I try to read a short story a day just because it's easy, you know. Just in the morning or in the afternoon, fit in a short story before I read whatever novel I'm going through.
Fair enough. I mean, so what are you reading right now?
Oh, I think I'm literally in the middle of about 9 books.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I get this thing in my head where I'm reading something and I'm enjoying it, but I'm thinking about what I want to read next, and then I'll just go to the shelf and I'll pick up a book, and then before I know it, I'm 2 chapters in. Um, so right now I'm reading. I'll just go through a couple of main ones. I'm reading Master of Whitestorm by Jenny Wirtz. I'm reading Stephen King's new collection, and I am reading I Am Pilgrim by Terry Hayes, which is, have you heard of that one?
I have not actually.
It's like it's like an old man spy novel, sort of like not about old men, but like for old men. You know how they love their little spy thrillers. It's one of those, but it's like sort of ambitious. It's quite long, and it does a few things with its with non-linearity that I quite like. But it's just like an old man spy wet dream.
Oh yeah, you did talk about the spy who came in the cold. I
Oh
haven't
yeah, I
I haven't
I
read that
love
one.
spy novels. So
So have you read like the James Bond novels, or you think
no,
that's do you think that's like do you
I
think
tend
that's
to I
more
tend to
you?
prefer more grounded spy fiction.
Fair enough. Okay.
I,
Okay.
I probably would like to read them though someday because I probably would like them, but I think I just like the realistic, gritty, um, spy kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I've been meaning to read "Spy Came In from the Cold." I've read it.
It's so easy to read. It's so good.
I, I I swear I've read a Le Car before. I just don't remember which one it is.
Oh,
Um,
all his work is great. You should definitely read more of it. He's one of my favorite authors. I love the guy.
I mean, I guess I did technically just read a. Well, it's kind of a spy novel. It's like a spy science fiction, weird fiction, but it's Ubik by Philip K. Dick, which I thought
Yeah,
was
I've read
pretty
that
damn
one
good.
yet.
I read it with
I do like Philip K. Dick.
I read it with a friend of mine, and we both enjoyed it.
Hmm. I need to read more of his work because I have I think it's a Library of America box set of a bunch of his novels,
Mm.
and I need to read more of them because I really do like his work.
Yeah, he's also a good short story writer.
Mm,
If you ever check out any of that, because I think PKD is someone you should read in stages.
yeah,
Like I wouldn't go like, here's Valis, jump in, because people are gonna be like, what is this?
no, that's fair.
I mean, like he was like doing postmodernism before it was cool. So there you go.
Yeah, he's very, um, yeah, I like because yeah, he's weird. I like writers that are weird and they
Mm-hmm.
just do just strange things for the hell of it. Because to me, I think something I like an idea that isn't necessarily good, but if it's interesting, I appreciate that more.
Mm. Yeah, no, I hear you, man. It's yeah. I mean, it's good to be challenged,
Mm.
but I mean, you're also reading Stephen King's new. Is it any good?
It's all right. There's some of them, so King's always a mixed bag with me. Some of them I'm not too into. The longest one in the whole book is kind of just a big pile of nothing. But there are a few really good ones in there actually. Like they quite impressed me.
Yeah, I haven't actually. That was a few years ago. I went on a gigantic Stephen King binge, and now I'm just kind of chilling out. I haven't read any of his like new books in like a long time. So.
I think the newest book I've read of his, apart from the new collection, is probably Revival, which is actually one of my favorites of his.
Yeah,
Might
I
even be
actually own
my
Revival.
absolute favorite.
I actually own Revival. I need to get to it. I've heard that's like his most cosmic horror. I'm like, whoa,
Yeah, so
Stephen
like
King doing
cosmic
cosmic
horror is like
horror?
my favorite kind of horror, and Revival is so King's actually really good at cosmic horror. I think. Like I think he really understands the genre better than a lot of writers.
Yeah, I mean, I've dipped my toe in the cosmic horror. I mean, I've read some H.P. Lovecraft, of course, though I don't think he invented cosmic horror.
No, no.
Ambrose Bierce is one I often say is underappreciated.
Hmm.
He did some
Yeah,
cosmic.
Ambrose Bierce, Arthur Macon, Algernon Blackwood.
Yeah, I did read the Wind. I remember reading the Wendigo. And did you ever read Scary Stories? Do you have scary stories to tell in the dark in Australia?
No, I mean we have it in Australia, but I never read it myself, and I always wanted to because I kind of like the vibe of how horror felt when you were a kid.
Oh, it rightly traumatized me when I was a child. But they literally have the Wendigo story in there. Like I
Oh
listened,
yeah,
like I read it like a long time ago. Oh, that was pretty fun. And then I listened to someone read Algernon Blackwood's The Wendigo, and I'm like, this is the story from Scary Stories. What the hell? They stole it from this? It was yeah, it was bad or not bad, but it was just I was like, wow, okay.
uh, yeah. No, I I love Algernon Blackwood, especially The Willows. That's one of my favorite horror stories of all time.
Again, I hate to be a normie, but I quite enjoy Edgar Allan Poe.
Oh, Edgar Allan Poe's good. I haven't read a ton of his stuff, but he's I have this. It's probably the contrarian me. I have this like weird aversion to wanting to read popular classics.
That's fair. I mean, you said you like Gravity's Rainbow. I mean, that's an odd take, or maybe not an odd take. There's a lot of people who like Gravity's Rainbow.
Yeah, I
It's
guess
definitely it's
it's
definitely a cult
normal
book.
amongst my people, but I think it's more popular to say that Gravity's Rainbow is too hard to read.
Or well, you like Malazan. Malazan's pretty popular.
Yeah. I kind of have mixed feelings on Malazan. I kind of love and hate it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I tend to have weird opinions about a lot of things that people don't like. um, I love the first four Malazan books, but I don't really like the rest.
I haven't read any of the Malazan books, so I mean I don't really know anything about that. But a lot of my
No,
friends tell me to go read it as soon
you
as
should
possible.
absolutely read at least the first two, I reckon.
So yeah, like you, my fantasy taste is a little unconventional.
Mm.
Because sometimes I'll recommend stuff and they'll be like, "What the fuck is this, Britton? Like, what is this?" You know. Like I read the Vor a few years ago, or I read the Vor last year. And my friend was like, "What
Mm.
the hell is this?" But I thought it was
I've
great.
been I've been wanting to read the Vor for a while now. I've had it on my shelf for ages, but I end up picking up other stuff instead.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting fantasy for sure.
Yeah, no, I think I so I tend to trust certain writers or people's opinions on books, and then just all these writers that I love have nothing but praise for Brian Catling. So
Oh yeah, I probably wouldn't have even known who Brian Catling was if I didn't hear Helen Moore's foreword to the Vor.
mm,
So there you go.
yeah,
Also, Jeff VanderMeer's on there, and Terry Gilliam is on there. I'm like, oh, these are like, oh, this is
yeah,
great.
all these writers you can trust are saying good things about Brian
All
Catling.
these
So it's like, oh,
writers
this guy's got
and
to be
film
good.
directors I enjoy really like this. Oh man, this is great.
That's like how I find half the books I like. I'll if I'm reading a book, I'll see who's blurbed it, and if I'll just go check out them.
It's a yeah. I'm the same way. I really like I like blurbs. I don't know. I'm kind of weird about that. I like blurbs a lot.
I just like them just for their utility because yeah, I think I can find so many writers that way. I go down a little rabbit hole sometimes. I was reading a Gene Wolfe book and it was blurbed by Michael Swanwick. So I was like, oh, I'll look into Michael Swanwick. And then Michael Swanwick's books were blurbed by someone else. So just kept going down the line of looking at who was blurbing each of their books. I'm like, now I have a new collection of writers I want to read.
Mm. Yeah, no, I mean, I really, Swanwick's another one I need to read. I've heard he's really good.
Yeah, so I have two of his books from the Iron Dragon's Daughter trilogy that I want to start reading soon. But as always, I got to get through my current pile of 9 books before I stop reading anything else.
Yeah, that's about right. That's how that's
Uh,
how it usually works
I
for me.
I watched your video, I think the one that you released yesterday about what you were going to read, your TBR, and then I picked up Black Leopard, Red Wolf off my shelf, and I started reading it. And I was like, no, I can't do it. I gotta put it back.
You
I
gotta,
was
you
like
gotta, you
three
gotta.
pages in. I was like, nah.
You got what? You didn't like the style, or were you just like,
Oh no, it's good, but I'm like, I can't add
admit?
another book right
Oh,
now.
okay. I was about to say, yeah, I will say Black Leopard, Red Wolf takes some mental energy, so might want to.
Oh no, I loved what I read. The first 2 or 3 pages, they were really good, and I was about to get sucked in. I was like, no, no, no. I have 9 books in the pile. I'll read this after.
Yeah, no, I'm really hoping to get to. I need to finish Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell before I really get into like anything else. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to Moonwitch Spider King a lot.
Mm,
Because Black Leopard Red Wolf is just so good. I love that book so much.
yeah, no, I Whenever there's a fantasy book that most people in fantasy don't like, I'm like, oh, I got to read that one.
I know. I'm so sad. Like no one, like my friend Jimmy at the Fantasy Network read it recently, and he really liked it. So I was like,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah. I watched his reading
yes.
vlogs, and they made me excited for it as well.
Though I first, well, I think hold on, I think I did first learn about it from SFF 180 Thomas because he reviewed it and he did a very good review of it. Mm.
I can't remember where I heard of it. I, I just found it. I think
I mean that's
you
fair.
just stumble on things.
Yeah, that's happened to me. Like it's actually it happens more with movies for me than anything. Like I'll accidentally like walk in on a movie and I'll be like, damn, that was great. Like I watched the Proposition a few years ago, just kind of by
Oh yeah, that's a good
accident.
one.
Fantastic film. I'm like, damn. Where? Come on. Like I did not hear this before.
Yeah, no. I I kind of have fun with movies because I'm not a huge movie guy, but sometimes I'll just flick on Netflix or Amazon or something, and I'll just pick whatever movie looks I'll try to because I really like horror. Are you a big horror fan?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'll just go through the horror and I'll find whatever one I haven't heard of. I'll watch that.
I mean, yeah, fair enough. God, I've been slacking on my movie watching, to be honest with you, because reading's been taking up a lot more of my time, and video
Mm.
games, video games when I'm not reading.
Yeah, no, I think video games and reading take up most of my time, and they keep me from writing, which is what I want to be doing.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I hear you, man. It's oh god, yeah. So like, what are some other what are some fantasy books that you enjoy? Because I noticed from your channel when I did watch of it that you're kind of a do I want to say free thinker? Maybe I don't know, but I can tell you have some, or I can tell you have some unconventional picks.
Yeah, well, that's actually one of the reasons I made a channel is because I want to talk about fantasy, but I want to talk about fantasy that people aren't really talking about because there's so much.
I know
And
that's one of the reasons I started my channel. That's talk
so,
about
like, I
books no
really
one's
love.
talking about.
I don't have the book in here with me because I think I'm actually reading that one as well. I'm rereading the Viraconian books by M. John Harrison.
Oh yeah,
Um,
I have a omnibus of that over there
mm,
on my
so
shelf.
good, just really one of my favorite writers. He's such a beautiful writer,
I read Light
and
last year and I thought that was a really good book.
I haven't read Light yet. Oh, I don't even have it. Um, I need to get Light. I have a bunch of his books, but yeah. So I love the Viraconian books. I love Book of the New Sun, but that's kind of people have been talking about that one heaps recently.
I've
But
been
that's good. That's good that they're talking about it.
I have only read one Gene Wolfe book and it was called The Land Across. I don't know if you've read that, but I didn't care for it. I was like,
I
oh
don't
no.
even think I've heard of that one.
It's one of his it
And
was one of the books he wrote before he died. So I'm like, maybe it's not like him at his best. I don't know, but I just wasn't taken to it.
Gene Wolfe's a weird one because he tried so many different things over his life, and he has so many extremely different books. I would at
I
very
do.
least recommend Shadow of the Torturer. It is, I think that was one of the first sort of like adult fantasy books I ever read.
I do
Um,
have the Wizard Knight over there on my pile, which I'm really
I,
hoping to
I
get to at some point.
I need to read The Wizard Knight. But the Shadow of the Torturer, it's short, but it's so good. It's like everything I love about fantasy. It's so just like weird, and things happen with sort of no explanation,
Yeah,
and
I've heard it be
it
called science fantasy as well.
so the series gets more science fiction as it goes on, or reveals itself to be more science fiction as it goes on. But the first book feels very much like a classic fantasy, or not a classic fantasy per se, but it feels more fantasy.
I was about to say, uh, can you even define classic fantasy? Because there was a conversation I saw a few weeks back, and they couldn't even really come to a singular conclusion on what it
I
is.
think I think it was that the Red Fury books and Philip Chase and
Yep.
yeah, I started watching that. I love AP Canavan, but sometimes I think he gets too bogged down in wanting to define something perfectly or not being able to.
Yeah, it's fair. Though I have to say, and I may have to watch it again, but I'll just go. They didn't bring up the quest narrative. That's like one of the like
The quest now, that's my favorite.
that's one of the that's probably either one of or the biggest like fantasy narrative like things you can
hmm,
do.
yeah, I,
That's why we
I,
read
I,
it.
I basically, I almost don't want to read fantasy unless there's a quest narrative.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I haven't really tried anything like Legends and Lattes yet because there's not a big quest in it.
Yeah, I, so yeah, a lot of the popular books that people talk about, they don't really seem to interest me that much.
Fair
And it's just
enough.
because I just love, I think I just like classic fantasy vibes. I love like farm boy fantasy, for instance. I love just a big quest. I love just weird magic.
Well, maybe you should
That's what I
read.
like. And then so many modern fantasy books. They're like, oh, there's not much magic in this book. I'm like, oh, I don't care that much then.
I was about to say, well, maybe you could read Way of Edan because it's very much that kind of classic. Well, Philip Chase
I've
wrote that, but uh,
I've been wanting to read Philip Chase's trilogy for ages, but I just haven't picked them up yet.
yeah, I actually got the third book by mistake the other day on Amazon because I was going to get the second one, but I got the third one. But I'm like, you know what?
Yeah, I've done that before.
That was all right. I made a whoopsie, but at least I got the third book now, so I don't have to worry about that until now. I just have to worry about getting the second book.
Yeah, no, I think I did. What do you think about big series as well? Because I find that the longer a fantasy series goes on, the more likely I am to start having problems with it.
Yeah, I'm generally wary of long series, which a lot of my friends kind of snicker at me for. But like, I'll read the occasional longer series, but if it holds my attention. Now, something like The Wheel of Time or Malazan, for that matter, is I'm a little more hesitant because they're long.
Yeah,
It's a lot of
the
commitment, and I really don't want to be that guy. Once I get to like the 10th book, I'll be like, "That was it. That was what we were building to." I don't want to do that.
that's my opinion for the Wheel of Time. I think after 14 books, I was like, oh, it's over now. Okay.
Oh well, Wheel of Time has just never grabbed me.
I
I've
I
never
really
felt
like the first four
I've never felt
because they just
compelled
they
to.
just feel like pure classic fantasy. They're so fun. After that, I'm not a big fan. I plowed through the last however many, like 10 books, and they weren't very good in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I haven't read The Wheel of Time, so I won't comment on that. But yeah, it was pretty. I didn't care.
Mm.
Well, I'll put it
Well,
this way: I've never been drawn to it like I have with like a Game of Thrones or.
mm.
Now Malazan's a little different because it actually sounds like something I might like because I've heard it's a
I
bit
think you would like
darker.
Malazan.
It's like darker and it deals with complex themes and whatnot. I'm like,
Mm.
okay, that sounds more like my wheelhouse. Again, it's just freaking long.
Yeah, no, that's the one thing Malazan's got
I
going
really
against.
don't
It's
want to
so
be
long.
I don't want to be bait and switched. I don't want to be like I get suckered in and then like it just fizzles out into nothing.
It definitely it gets it's this it's such a weird series, and like it's not like, so to me the Wheel of Time, it's so long but it feels very small as it goes on, because the world, I don't know, it's characters are just like teleporting all around the place instantaneously. The world feels like quite small as a result, whereas Malazan, like every book has its own sort of plot, so each one feels quite large, and like it feels way more dense and epic in scope. Whereas because Wheel of Time is one continuous narrative, it just feels smaller as it goes along.
Yeah, I've wanted to like I'm always looking for fantasy that's kind of different. So and I've heard that
Hmm.
Malazan can really get out there and I mean, hey, I hope I enjoy it. I might have to save it till next year though, because it's I have a bunch of
No,
stuff I
that's
want to
fair.
read. Like I mean, you said you saw my summer reads video. I have a stacked list right now.
I think well, not to recommend you any more books, but if you want a different fantasy book that I really love is The Etched City by KJ Bishop.
Actually heard of that. Believe it or not, because I was kind of on a new weird kick a few years ago, and
Mm,
I read like China Mieville's Bazlag, which I think is criminally underappreciated, and I
yeah,
often get after people to go read it, kind of like Black Leopard, Red Wolf. Um, I didn't really care for the Iron Council, but I digress. um, but yeah, I've heard of that one. I've heard it's very good.
you should definitely check it out. It's one of my favorites. It starts out seemingly quite normal, but it just gets weirder and weirder as it goes on. It's a really beautiful novel, I think.
I'll have to check it out. I mean, there's always. I mean, I'm reading Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell right now, and I
Hmm.
mean, I don't know if you've read that, but
No,
it's a bit of a chunker, and it's
yeah,
only one book, so that's a good thing.
I
But I
read
try to I try to I try to read smaller like trilogies and the occasional
mm,
standalone, or if it is a longer series, and it better hold my attention.
yeah, no, I think I've come to think of it like I don't try not to think of books in series anymore because I don't tend to like all of the books in a series. So I just tend to focus on the ones I do like. So, and Malazan's good for that because I think, say, Dead House Gates, that's in my top 10 books of all time. I think that is just a perfect book on its own. Like, the good thing about Malazan is like each book has its own plot, you know? Like there's the greater plot of the whole series, but like they still have their own contained storylines that get resolved.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. I've heard that Malazan, it's so. People have tried to sell me on it. I'm just like, God, that sounds really complicated, and it's like it is a little bit, but like, don't worry, you'll be fine. I'm like, eh.
Yeah, it does get complicated later on in the series,
But
but
I'm like,
like I
I could
think
read Black Leopard, Red Wolf for like Perdido Street Station, and they're doing
yeah,
all that crazy stuff, but just in
I
one
think you'd be
book.
fine. I think you'd be fine with Malazan, especially because like it's like I say, you don't need to understand everything. I think
Well,
a
no,
common thing.
I don't. I try not to. I try not to fall in that trap myself, but sometimes it's hard. I
Yeah,
like
yeah, I get
puzzles.
it.
I like viewing books as like puzzles.
Mm,
I have to
yeah,
know.
well,
I have to know. It's like I get real neurotic about it.
there's some things I feel like I need to know to get into something more, but then there's other things that I don't. In Malazan, like this thing called the Deck of Dragons, and to me, it's basically just like a tarot deck. You know, they can predict events with it or something. And I think a lot of readers have trouble because they don't understand the mechanics of it. To me, I'm just like, it's they're reading tarot cards right now.
I'm curious what you think about like magic, because I've seen some people talk about it recently.
Hmm.
And I'm actually thinking about starting. I said that I had it recently on my community poll because I've been using that a lot this year. But I'm like, so I have this show called The State of Science Fiction, but like, do you guys want to see something like that but with fantasy? And it was basically almost unanimously yes, I should do that. So
Hmm.
I don't know what approach I'm going for yet, but I think magic might be a subject I'll cover if that.
I think magic's an interesting one because everybody sort of has their own perspective on it.
Because everyone argues about it. Because I like magic to be weird and mysterious, but like,
Absolutely.
but then I see there's people who almost seem like it's like you mentioned earlier that like there's some people who like it's almost like they don't like any magic, and it's like,
Yeah.
well then where's the
Yeah.
fantasy at? You're just in an alternate world. Like that's not well. Okay, that is pretty fun, but like it's not as fun if there's no magic in it.
That's
At least for
one of the
me.
reasons I haven't read Guy Gabriel Kay yet. Is I'm sure he's very good, and I've heard nothing but good things both from fantasy readers and my literary friends. They all have good things to say about Guy Gabriel Kay, but I don't know. When I hear about a guy just writing historical fantasy without much magic, I'm like, eh, I want weird magic.
Oh, you mean like Jonathan Strange, Mr. Norrell? Then I mean the magic is subtle, but it's definitely there.
Mm.
And
I do want to read it because I really loved Piranesi.
yeah, I really like Paranesi too. I read that last year, and I liked it a lot. I thought it was
Yeah,
a.
so I think I read Piranesi when it came out and I loved it and I instantly bought Mr. Strange and I've forgotten the name already. Jonathan Strange. But yeah, it's so big I haven't gotten around to it yet.
Yeah, I know. It's like God. Let me get my copy real quick. I just it's a big boy. Look at this thing.
Hmm.
It's this is only one book, people. Better be lucky this isn't a series either. Though I'm really
What
liking this book, and I would love to see a sequel to this. It would be
it would
fun
be
to
cool
see.
if she did that.
That would be. I do hear she's putting out a new story in the Strange universe, Strange and Normal
Oh yeah.
universe this year, so that's pretty cool. But
Yeah, no, I definitely want to read more of her work because yeah, Piranesi I really really liked.
yeah, I did
That
too.
that's
Oh, sorry. What? Finish your thought.
No, sorry, I was gonna say Piranesi. That's a fun one because it appeals. It seems to appeal to quite a broad audience, but it is quite a bit weird itself.
Yeah, no, I got a yeah, I need to, I got a lot of good comments on that what I'm reading this summer, even though. Anyway, sorry, getting off topic.
All good.
No, but I really enjoy unconventional fantasy. I'll put it that way. I like unconventional
Absolutely.
Now I do. Now I'm not completely a hipster. I do like stuff like The First Law and Game of Thrones a lot. Um,
Yeah.
Even Gentlemen Bastards. Even though I don't think Gentlemen Bastards is like that conventional. It's much more like an adventure novel, like something like if Dumas wrote a fantasy is what I like to describe it to people as.
I need to retry Lies of Locke Lamora because it I got a little bit annoyed with it when I first tried reading it because he
Well,
used the word masticating in a sense that I'm like he just write chewed. Just say that he chewed on an apple instead of masticated an apple. Um, that annoyed me.
oh, okay, okay, but I really like that. I really like that series, except for the Republic of Thieves. I thought was kind of. I actually, it's funny. I was in an argument with a guy the other day about Deus Ex Machina. Because like
Yeah,
in the Republic of Thieves, there's this really blatant Deus Ex Machina in like the first 100 pages. It completely derails the book and just removes all tension. And I'm like, that
yeah.
is not how you do a Deus Ex Machina, people. Because like I'm not against them. I think it's a part of storytelling for a reason, and
Mm,
yet and there's a way to use it well. It's just
mm.
in that case, it was not.
Yeah, no. I think I think there's a way to do everything well in writing. It's just it's just a matter of how you do it.
And then the rest of the book was just it felt like a whimper. It was sad. I
Mm.
got sad reading that book. It's like those
Yeah, no,
first two
but
books are really good. But I
I
digress.
think um because I like plenty of like more conventional fantasy, I guess. Um, I like some of the popular stuff too. I love Game of Thrones, A Song of Ice and Fire.
Like the Way of Edan is like the most like classical tropey fantasy you'll imagine, but it's really well done.
Mm, mm.
Hope Philip doesn't get mad at me. I think he would even acknowledge it's very trope heavy.
Yeah, no, I
And
don't. I
I,
don't think Philip can get mad at anyone.
I don't mind trope heavy stuff. Just do it well.
Absolutely. I've got to get the way of Adan books because
another quest narrative too. Oh my god, he did bring up the
yeah
quest. I'm still salty about that. If you couldn't tell the the
um
lack of this.
I was gonna say A Song of Ice and Fire actually that's a good example I think of doing magic in a really weird way that isn't emphasized by the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's some, like because even though say you're reading a Game of Thrones for the first time, it's not a very magical book, but you can tell that there's still like a lot of reverence for the strangeness of magic, sort of like bubbling under the surface of it,
Mm-hmm.
and that makes it like quite interesting for me. So I don't even think the magic needs to be um, like first and foremost in a book. It just needs to there needs to just be sort of an atmosphere for it.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I also like about Game of Thrones is like when the magic, like big magic moments, really happen. They really feel like
Mm,
they
yeah,
really you're like, oh shit, Like that's magic, you know. Like he's really
Yeah,
good at it.
absolutely. It really knows how to make magic like feel like very impactful and powerful. And yeah, I quite like how magic's done in that series.
Yeah, it's good. Like I don't know. I guess I like more subtle magic, and
Hmm.
I know it's kind of sad to say because like fantasy is the literature of imagination,
Hmm.
and like when I see people being like, "There's too much magic," I'm like, guys, it's like if you read a horror book and you said it's too scary.
Yeah,
That's the point, dude. It's meant to
yeah,
creep you out. Ugh.
you know. I think yeah, I just love anything that just feels magical. That's doesn't even necessarily have to be magic as long as it feels magical.
Yeah, like I want to be whisked away to another
Yeah,
plane, you know.
I,
But
it's a very, I think I have a very sort of nostalgic love of fantasy. A lot of the time, I just want something I can kind of read by the fire and feel like a kid again.
yeah, I mean that's definitely the appeal of fantasy. I mean, I need to read Lord of the Rings again, but you know,
Mm,
sometimes I need to
me
read
too.
it and have like a warm feeling on the inside. You know,
Yeah, yeah. That's I read. Have you read the King Killer Chronicles?
I have not, but I've heard that's one
Um,
that's one I've that's one of those I was actually talking about this yesterday with a friend of mine, my friend Epic Tales. It's one that it seems like there's no lukewarm opinions about it. Like you either love it or you downright hate it.
yeah, I think that is the case. And but I read that for the first time last year. I just picked up The Name of the Wind, and I just it felt so cozy to me. Like it was just so nice. Um, it's
You
not a
mean like Jonathan
particularly
Strange and
like
Mr. Norrell?
riveting book,
Then
but
it's all that's also a very cozy read.
which one?
Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. Sorry,
Oh yeah,
though it's about a lot of like English gentlemen who are like kind of snobbish, but like they're like there's like a wryness to it. It's very
hmm.
I hate to say this, but it's very Dickensian in that way, where it's like
Yeah, yeah.
there's kind of this like it's like there's a joke and the writer's kind of in on it. I guess is how I would describe it.
Hmm. That's like I think so when it comes to liking books, like say like yeah, um, because obviously when I'm really enjoying a book, but I always want to be reading the next thing. What I really like is like say with The Name of the Wind. That's a book I just wanted to spend all my time with, uh,
Mm.
and that's a rare feeling for me. I feel like um, because I for once I wasn't trying to pick up the next book I wanted to read. I was like, oh yeah, I want to stick with this one for a while, and that's what I look for in fantasy. I look for a book that where I want to stay with it, and I don't want to be reading something else.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I though sometimes I'll read two fantasy books at once and I have to kind of jump around.
I was I was also like that with Harry Potter recently. I listened to all of them
That's another one
while I
that's
was at
like,
work.
man, I just want to like curl up and like in a
Yeah,
warm blanket. I love
I
this.
I was because I don't love going to work. I'm a normal person, but every morning I was like, oh fuck yeah, I get to go and listen to Harry Potter for 6 hours. It was very fun. I like those books.
I saw you mentioned Beloved on your top
Hmm.
10 video in your honorable mentions. I actually read Kindred this year.
Yeah,
From Octavia Butler. When you said that, I thought like you may really like that book. That's the only 5-star book I have read this year so far. There have been books I've
Kindred.
really enjoyed, but I tend to be picky with the 5-star. Like you have to really like wow me to get like a 5-star, right? And that one
Yeah,
did. It's a really good book.
I
Also,
have that. I've had that on the shelf for years. I haven't picked it up yet. I really should.
though I
Um,
haven't read Beloved. I've wanted to try Toni Morrison for a very long time. I just
you should definitely read Toni Morrison. She's brilliant.
I don't know where to start though. Like, would you say Beloved's a good place to start?
Yeah, I think Read Beloved or The Bluest Eye, her first novel, both of those, really, really phenomenal.
Yeah,
And
that's always a thing with a lot of authors. You don't know where to start.
I say like because I think a lot of people, I think maybe they can overthink it too much. They have all these like they come up with these videos like guide on where to start with this particular author, and they have like figure out some kind of formula. Um,
Oh
I
man,
reckon just start with whatever one seems the most interesting.
fair enough. I was about to say, oh man, I was about to do that with Philip K. Dick at some point. I'm really hoping I'm not
There's
feeding
nothing
into
wrong
that
with
too
doing
much.
that. Obviously, they're very helpful videos for people who do have trouble.
Because like a lot
But
of people
I
are
think,
always because a lot of people know I'm a big like Philip K. Dick fan. And they're like,
mm,
Britton,
mm,
where do you start with them? I'm like, oh jeez.
yeah, because people are always asking that, so it's good to answer it. But
But
for
yeah,
me, I
thinking
just
about
like
the
I'm like
video.
go with your gut, go with what feels good.
Now, if it's someone like Dennis Lehane, that's
Mm,
like who's a noir writer. I'd be like, you could start anywhere with him. Like,
yeah,
he's not that complicated. Most of his books you can understand pretty. Like you could pick
that's
up Mystic River and like connect with it, and you'd probably be okay. Like, it's not like a, or well, it is a deep book, but it's not like a Blood Meridian or like a Thomas Pynchon type of deep.
mm. I think
It's an
that's the thing as well. Is
it's an emotionally deep book.
yeah, I think because like lots of some authors like you say they're just kind of different. Like some you can pick up anywhere, and some people might not necessarily know what all their books are, or know the series, or know where to begin. Um, like say like a Brandon Sanderson or a
Yeah,
or
Brandon
a Philip
Sanderson
K.
seems
Dick.
like one you could kind of pick up, and
I think you could pick up Brandon Sanderson anywhere, but like say if somebody doesn't know what all the different series are, maybe they would need a little guide. But I think also like what's the Terry Pratchett, because he has the Discworld books, but they have all these weird sub series
yeah, I'm
and
thinking
stuff
of
like
starting
that.
Guards sometime this year. I'm definitely.
I I didn't love Gods,
Oh
but I
no,
think that's
no.
just because I found it too funny.
Oh well.
Like I found it was just a joke every sentence. I was like, oh, that's too much for me. Too many jokes.
It's too funny, or trying too hard to be fun. I don't know. It's
A little bit of both. You have to be in the mood for something like very what's the word? Not the word. What's the one with the dolphins?
Free Willy.
Hitchhiker's Guide to the
Oh,
Galaxy.
Hitchhiker. Oh, I was about to say. Yeah, oh, but I love Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yeah, no, it's very. So I love Hitchhiker's Guide too. It's if you like Hitchhiker's
Thank
Guide,
you. I knew we would get along famously. This is great. I'm always
it's
telling people to go. Everyone's like, "Oh my god, Discworld!" I'm like, "Bro, Hitchhiker's Guide though, that shit slaps."
it's basically the same thing. Hitchhiker's Guide is like it's just nothing but jokes and like references to sci-fi tropes and stuff like that. Gods is basically the same thing.
And there's a depressed robot, and it's one of the best parts of the book. Did you ever watch the Hitchhiker's movie?
I did actually. I watched it after I read the book, but I can't remember. Both was like 10 years ago, so I can't remember.
Oh, okay. I was about to be like, I think Edgar Wright should have directed it, but aside from that, I thought it was fine.
Yeah, I think I enjoyed it.
Also, Alan Rickman as Marvin was great.
Yeah,
Loved it. But no,
yeah. No, Alan Rickman was a tremendous actor.
yeah, but anyway, I don't want to get too on the Hitchhiker. But everyone, if anyone is watching this, you definitely should read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, especially if
Mm.
you like Discworld. I haven't read Discworld though, but I've heard it's similar.
No, it's very similar. I think. Just all of it, like the fantasy version. Um, I would like to try Gods again when I'm more in the mood for funny. It's just I'm
Yeah,
not
like
often
you
in the
have to be
mood
in
for
a
funny.
like I don't know, like generally like I disagree with like Douglas Adams's like, kind of thesis with that book, which is like nothing matters, let's just have fun while we're at it.
Mm.
Cuz like, I'm like, I kind of there has to be something else that matters. There has to be something
Yeah.
I don't know. But I had fun with it though. Like,
Mm. Yeah, absolutely.
it's like a fun cynicism, like when I play a Rockstar game.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if I agree with that worldview, but it's fun to think about. It's like a fun, like I don't know. It's hard to
Yeah.
describe.
No, absolutely. I think it's good to even if you don't agree with things, it's good to give them a read anyway.
Well, I mean, I read Perdido Street Station. I'm definitely not a Marxist like China Mieville is, but I think it's a brilliant book nonetheless.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Have you read China Mieville at all?
I have so many of his books, and I still haven't read them.
Oh
And
man.
funnily enough, the thing that initially drew him, that initially drew me to him was um, his political views. I was
Oh.
like, a fantasy author that's a Marxist. That's interesting. Um, I have some communist sympathies in my politics. So
Oh well, hey, you might like Pretty Little Street Station. There's a lot of like socialist commentary in it. I mean, I don't know if I
yeah, no,
agree with it,
that's
but
so
I really
that's
enjoy it
initially what drew
nonetheless.
him. Yeah, so I really do want to read those books at some point.
That's funny. I didn't think of that. No, but though I will say, if you do read Bad's like Iron Council is where he really kind of goes into like
I've heard that. That's
socialist
the one
stuff.
that kind of interests me the most, though, because I think I've heard that it's like kind of like Western
It
inspired.
is, yeah. It's very Western inspired, and that's an interesting book because I was kind of let down by it, but there's a lot of interesting stuff in there that I thought was
Hmm.
interesting.
Yeah, no,
That
I'm definitely once I've got to finish reading my stack of books, and then I think I just want to like set myself free from any sort of like TBR restrictions, and then I just read whatever I want. I really want to read Perdita Street Station soon.
Yeah, it's funny. My friend Alicia, I'm actually had her on this podcast. She sent me a text today showing she got Perdido Street Station. I'm like, oh, well, I hope you enjoy it if you read it because it's a fantastic book. I think the Scar is also really good too. That's
I
I don't
think
know if you've ever had one of those books before. It's sort of a similar thing with All the Pretty Horses from McCarthy. I read it and I'm like, okay, I like this a lot, and then like it stayed with me, and I'm like, man, it was a lot better than I thought it would. Like I liked it, but I felt it got better for me the more I thought about it. I don't know if
yeah,
that's happened
absolutely.
for
That's
you.
how I am with a few books. Have you read Dahlgren by Samuel Delaney?
I have not, but I've heard of it.
That's a book that I love thinking about way more than I actually enjoyed reading it.
you know,
Um,
it's
and
funny.
I don't mean that to be like an insult in any way because I still I still think it's a good book, but like I think it has so many ideas in it that you just want to think about it. But reading it can be a little boring.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. I mean, a friend of mine and I were talking about a book he wrote called Hog, which is apparently
Yeah,
like a
fuck.
really disturbing.
Yeah.
I didn't dare read it. I'm like, you know what? I'm probably not gonna read that. It sounds.
One day I think I want to read Hog, but
Maybe you
not
can
this
tell me
day.
how it is, but I had a friend who's like, bro, I've read some messed up stuff, and I couldn't do it. Like, he's too good of a writer, where it's just, I couldn't do it. And I'm like, all right, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I'll take it.
Yeah, no, I have kind of uh uh an inclination towards fucked up books like that. Like
Well, I like
there's
depraved books too, but, like, I have a limit. I have a limit. I don't know if maybe I'll read Hog at some point, but so far I'm like that's on my I'm not planning on it anytime soon. Maybe someday.
before you read Hog, I would say try Dahlgren. That one I think is very interesting. Very worth your time.
Yeah, I've thought of either picking that up or Babel 17 from him.
Oh yeah, I haven't read that one yet. I've got it on the shelf.
Though yeah, like All the Pretty Horses was a similar thing where I read it and I liked it and I was like this is pretty good. It stayed with me. I'm like man, that was some good stuff.
I think as a whole, the McCarthy's Border trilogy, it might be his best work if you consider it all as one book. Have you read the whole
I did
trilogy?
read The Crossing this year and I liked that a lot though. My God, he just smacks on the bleak.
Yeah,
Just
The
like
Crossing is
it's like he just keeps punching this kid into the dirt, and you're just like, oh my God, this is brutal.
see the Crossing for me simultaneously it's like his most it's really like horrible what happens, but I think it's also got his best examples of like um the goodness of people. Like as even though he's going through all this crap, there's always somebody who's like letting him stay with them, or they're giving him advice or feeding him stuff like that.
Yeah, no, it's I like the bit where he talks with like that like Mormon. I think it's like an ex-missionary, and he
Mm,
talks with him, and they like talk in Spanish. I will say the one annoying bit about McCarthy's work is he just has Spanish that's untranslated, so I have to
yeah.
translate a lot of it. So then it makes it even more of a task concentrating, you know.
There's these documents someone's put together. I found them online when I was reading. They're documents that's like it's all the dialogue in Spanish in order translated,
Mm-hmm.
so that when you're reading, whenever you come across a piece of Spanish dialogue, you can just refer to this document, and the phrase you're looking for will be translated in order of where it is in the book.
Oh hell, maybe. Oh man, I wish I would have found that. I was just
Yeah.
gonna. I was trying to like read it as I was going along. But yes, I read All the Pretty Horses last year. I read The Crossing this year, and then next year I'm thinking I'll do Cities of the Plain. See how I
Cities of
do.
the Plain. I think Cities of the Plain is really underrated. I
Yeah,
think
I don't see a lot of people talk about that.
it's really good. And the conclusion of it, particularly the last like 50 pages, I think might be the best thing McCarthy's ever written. Honestly.
All right, I look forward to it. I am also hoping to read Outer Dark this Halloween time.
Oh,
So
Outer Dark is also phenomenal. I love Outer Dark. I think that's another example of his humanity. Is like it's so Outer Dark might be one of his darkest books as well, but there's just so much about the goodness of people in there as well. I just really love that one.
yeah, I'll have to. I'm looking forward to that one because I've heard there's some nasty villains in that one. Some
Oh yeah,
dastardly
it's
villains in that one. So I'm looking
his
forward to it.
villains. They're sort of like a precursor to the Judge. They he doesn't go full supernatural often, but Outer Dark is one where it's I think distinctly supernatural. I really like it.
Yeah, it's one of the things I like about McCarthy's work is that kind of it's almost this weird unreality.
Mm,
Like it feels like you're on
absolutely.
another, which is why I like Blood Meridian so much. It's like you know how you were saying like Sutry feels like it's on another planet. It's like
Yeah,
that for me, but with Blood Meridian, I was like, oh my
yeah.
god.
Blood
Ah,
Meridian is they're all good. I love McCarthy, and I think that's something that's not talked about enough in his work is how surreal and sort of otherworldly they feel. There's definitely like a lot of Gnostic elements to his writing.
yeah, I remember I was kind of debating with a friend. We clashed like this a lot, and he's like, I felt it was a little too stylized. I'm like, dude, every book is stylized. Like, come on, like, it's
Yeah,
not a.
that's something because style is to me. People say they like style over substance, but to me, style is substance.
That's like it's like saying that like, oh god, it's like comparing Dr Pepper and Diet Dr Pepper. You know, it's like, come on, same
Yeah,
thing technically.
I prefer books with a strong style as opposed to books that try to avoid it. Um, I actually have a video I've got scheduled to come out soon. That's going to be about why I think like what different form means in different novels, and just generally why I find it more interesting when novels try something that isn't just like say plain or window pane prose.
Mm-hmm. Though
Because
I always say this. I don't think like bared back prose is bad. I think prose
mm,
should and I don't know if you would agree with this. Maybe you will, but I find that prose should be appropriate to the story it's telling.
yeah, for sure. I think, and some sort like I think like so I mentioned this in the video I've got coming out is have you read any Michael J. Sullivan?
Oh, isn't he the guy who wrote that? Damn it, I can't think of it. Didn't he write that fantasy series? The one about the assassin and his friend. Or is that another
Ray
guy?
Revelations?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what.
So
I have
his
heard of it. I
books,
have not read it, but I've heard of it.
well, to me they're like my favorite example of like crystal clear prose. It reads like a movie in your head, and it's so like just perfectly formulated that like even say I'm reading a Brandon Sanderson book or something. I don't think it's as simple or easy to read as other people because like I have problems with some of his writing choices, whereas Michael J. Sullivan's books, they're just so crystal clear. I just don't. There's no bumps in the road. There's no hitches. It's really
Yeah,
just
or I often think of like Hemingway. You
yeah.
know.
It's like it's very crisp and it's very clear and like so that's a choice and it works really well in that case and it serves that story really well. But for when it comes to me, I just appreciate something that tries something formalistically weird, even if it's not successful.
Oh, so that's why you like James Joyce. I see you. I see you.
Even
I
if
do.
even if it fails at what it's trying, the fact that it tried something different is what's important to me.
Yeah, I'm a similar way. I mean, I remember reading. I like stuff that's striking.
Mm.
You know,
Because
I like.
that I don't know, that just sticks with me for longer. I think it makes me think about how writing works, and I like that.
Though I'm kind of surprised that you didn't really take to Lies more. I thought the prose style in that was very captivating.
I feel like I might have just been in a bad mood, but it just struck me the wrong way. I was like, I thought he was trying. Like, I don't like it with saying when people are trying too hard or something because I don't believe in the idea of purple prose. But I was like, I feel like he's trying too hard.
Fair enough.
But I do need to I need to reread it because book seems like quite fun to me, and I want to enjoy it.
And hey, you may not enjoy it. I mean, I won't be upset. I mean, I'll be
Mm.
disappointed probably, but
I do try to every time I dislike a book, I always have the intention of wanting to go back to it to try it again because I don't want to dislike books, you know?
yeah, I want to be sure before I fully
Absolutely.
commit.
And there's
Unless
always
it's a
times when
book, well,
I've not liked a book and I go back later and I love it, you know?
or unless it's like a book that was just so strikingly bad, which has happened to me before.
Yeah.
I can't suffer
There's some
like
things
Dan Brown.
I know are bad, you know, and I'll never go back to it. But yeah, like with Liza Luckmore, it put me off when I first read it, but I want to go back to it because I think it might have just been a bad mood that I was in.
Yeah, or I mean there are some. I don't know what books you just don't like at all, but like there are some books that I've read that are so strikingly bad that I can't handle it. It's like, oh
No,
god, no.
I'm trying to think of some. There was one. It's you probably wouldn't have heard of it. I think it's called Broken Monsters by an author called her name's Lauren Bukes.
I have heard of
I
the author. I've not heard of that book.
I I used to do this thing where I would show people the first page of that book because it made me so. It was so bad. It might be the worst first page of any book ever written. And I just used to show people. I'm like, just read this. Look how bad it is. Um, yeah, I read the first page of that book and I closed it. I'm like, nah, never touching that again.
Oh man, I don't know if it's interesting because like most books I can tell if I'll like it or not pretty quickly.
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't know if you're the same way. If you like give a
Yeah,
book as, but like I'll read a book for like a couple pages. I'm like, oh, okay, you know what? I think I'll like this. Or I'll read a
yeah.
book and I'll be like, I think this is gonna suck.
I think yeah. So I'm generally the same. I think I know what I like enough, and usually I can tell if I'll enjoy the story, even if I don't necessarily love the writing all that much.
Hmm.
But then sometimes there's weird examples like the Bound and the Broken series by Ryan Carhill that is getting quite popular now. I I read the first book in that series of Blood and Fire, and I really liked it. And then I read the prequel novella that everybody recommends you read first, and I thought it was awful. And I was like, I thank God I didn't read that first because I wouldn't have continued
Might
reading
not have
after it.
turned. I might not have read it at all if I did.
Yeah. So whenever people are discussing that book now, they're like, "Oh, which one should I read first, The Fall or Blood and Fire?" I'm like, "Read of Blood and Fire. Don't read The Fall. It sucks."
Oh man, that's good. I haven't read Ryan Cale yet though. I've been slowly dipping my toes into to indie books or self
I
pub.
would. I'd like to read more indie books.
The
Because I
thing
think
is that there's a lot of like traditionally published books I'd like to read. You know, like this
yeah,
self pub thing is hard. You know, like it makes it harder. But there's some I've
it's
read and I've enjoyed. So
yeah. I think I think I'm more inclinated towards liking self pub now because I even if it's a bad thing, I like it when authors are unrestrained by publisher expectations. And especially when it comes to fantasy, I think because it's such a commercial genre, I'm less trusting of what traditional publishers are wanting to put out, I think.
mm-hmm.
So I like the idea of self-published authors just doing whatever they want
Wait a minute.
and not trimming the fat.
Wait, didn't you say Ulysses was your favorite book? Like, wasn't that your number one?
Yeah, Ulysses is my favorite book of all time.
Oh, okay, okay. Again, I need to read more Joyce. I've read Portrait. Again, I read Portrait of an Artist as Young Man when I was very young, and I don't remember all of it.
You should read it again. That has one of my favorite passages in literature. Is you might remember this section. It's the section where a priest is giving a sermon
Mm-hmm.
on hell, and it's just from the perspective of the character Stephen Dedalus as he's being lectured to on the consequences of sinning and all the horrific consequences of hell, and just the idea of driving this fear of God into this small boy. It's so good. It's very powerful.
Yeah. I remember. I remember reading it because I mean, you say you listen. You're a musician. You even have
Mm-hmm.
a like music thing on your channel here. I see.
Mm.
Have you listened to Hosier?
Yeah. I like Hosier.
That's actually who introduced me to Portrait of an Artist as Young Man. Because apparently you really
Oh,
liked
really?
that book. So yeah, I would definitely recommend it for people who are kind of feeling angsty, and it's a good book for young people.
It is. I think it is. Yeah, portrait Joyce is great, and Portrait of an Artist as a Young Man is probably it's his most accessible, I think, and that also does something really I love with form is that the writing in that novel it ages with the main character,
Mm-hmm.
so it starts out he's a baby, so the language starts out very childish, and then as he gets older, it gets a bit more complex. It's very fun.
Yeah. I mean, I think Joyce is one of those very playful stylists, kind of
Oh
like
yeah, he does.
Vladimir Nabokov, or
Hmm.
I've only read one Pynchon, but Pynchon I think has that as well.
Absolutely. That's my favorite thing about writing is just playing with the idea of how you can write stories. And I think Karl Ove Knausgaard in his the first book of his My Struggle is he talks about how form is the most important aspect of good writing.
Yeah,
And
I've seen that. I've seen that at my local bookshops, but I have no idea what the hell it is. I'm like, is it an
it's
autobiography? Is it a novel?
it's not it is but it isn't. It's like fiction but
Is it
nonfiction at
like
the same time.
is it like I don't know. It was like it's kind of like House of Leaves. I look at it and I'm like, what the hell even is this book?
Yeah,
Is it a
House of
novel?
Leaves is another fun. House of Leaves is like it's a novel. No, it's like a nonfiction book wrapped up in a novel, wrapped up in editor's notes.
Oh my
Um,
god.
yeah, I House of Leaves is very sort of fun to explore because it does so many fun things with form. But my struggle is just I've only read the first volume, but it's just like it's basically him just talking about his life, but it's semi fictionalized. Uh, but I think if you're just a white guy, who if you're just a white guy, you're gonna resonate with it in some sense. I think because there's you want to feel that your life experience is unique, but it probably isn't in a lot of ways. Um, and you realize we all sort of had the same feelings and fears and anxieties growing up, and it's just about this guy talking through that.
Yeah, yeah. It's a good. Or, well, yeah. I need to read more like Gene Wolfe. You know.
Absolutely.
Apparently he was a very interesting guy. Not only was he a well-known author of speculative fiction, apparently he created the Pringle machine, the machine that created the Pringle.
Really?
Yeah.
That's all right.
He also had a pretty cool mustache. I have to
He
say.
did have a cool mustache.
I saw an
I
interview
know
with
that
him and he
much.
didn't have the mustache. I was like, where'd it go? The mustache.
Yeah, no, definitely read Shadow of the Torturer. Um, at the very least, I think you'll like it.
Yeah, a lot of people told me that. I've wanted to try that for a few years. Again, I haven't found the time.
Or if you want to be a little contrarian, read the Latro series.
Oh, I've heard that.
I'm
I've
not
heard of
not
that
not
one.
contrarian, but hipster, I guess. Read the Latro series; they're also very cool. It's about this guy who um, he can't remember anything at the start of each new day, so he writes a journal at the end of every single day, telling him exactly what's happened. So he has to reread it every morning to figure out what's going on. But because of his memory loss, he's also been granted this ability to see gods and divine beings and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's very very good series.
Yeah, I mean, like there's other books like that. Like I remember seeing one from a guy called like William Gass,
Oh yeah, William Gass, my favorite writer of all time.
where I've like I always get him mixed up with William Gaddis
Mm,
because, like, well, for
yeah,
one, they both wrote big books, and two, their names sound similar. So you're just like, well, I'm
yeah,
fucked.
and they were also friends. So
They were friends. That makes it even worse.
yeah,
Wasn't one of them friends with Cormac McCarthy?
I'm not sure. They might have been. Cormac McCarthy's so reclusive; it's hard to tell who he was friends with.
Fair enough, but yeah, those. Oh man, I don't know what to do with those books. But
I
they're good.
so William Gass is my favorite writer of all time. His sentences, every single sentence he ever wrote was just beautiful. Or not necessarily beautiful, but just like he took him 26 years to write his novel The Tunnel because
Damn.
he was such a perfectionist. It took him 26 years to write this novel. Um,
26 years. That is insane.
and then his first novel, Omen Said His Luck, it was actually he had finished writing the whole novel and then he had it on his desk at school where he was a professor, and then the whole novel was stolen, and he had to rewrite the entire thing from memory. But in the process, he added like a whole new character and a whole new dimension to the novel, and it's so good.
Which one is this?
Omen Said His Luck.
But yeah, I was about to say I do remember you. If I recall, I do remember you bringing it up. So
Yeah, yeah.
your favorite
Well,
books.
I'm also reading William Gaddis's novel at the moment, The Recognitions. I'm reading that one at the moment. Um, that is a big novel. It's like 800 pages, but the pages are all tiny
Fuck.
text.
His first novel written in 1966. Next
Yeah,
novel
then
1995.
yeah.
That is insane.
So whenever people complain about George R. R. Martin or Patrick Rothfuss, I'm like, no, no, no. William Gass took 26 years between novels. You're fine.
Bro, hell, I might read Omen Setter's Luck first. It's
You
only
should
like
you should do it.
336 pages.
It's a novel you have to read very slowly because his sentences are so deliberate, but they're so good. And he's very funny, he's a very funny writer, but he's also very sort of he writes these great morally sort of evil characters.
So like,
He's very great at writing a freak.
like McCarthy in that way.
Yeah,
Sounds
yeah, absolutely.
McCarthy-esque to me. But yeah, it's oh man, I'll add that to my. I'm sure it might already be on my list because I know of Omen Set. because well, I've definitely heard of William Gass. So
And then
what?
if you're ever inclined, check out his short stories as well because his short fiction is amazing. He has he has a collection of novellas called Cartesian Sonata, and in that collection there's a novella called The Master of Secret Revenges, and it's about this very bitter character who his whole life he just loves getting revenge on people for very petty reasons. And like he's planned he goes over like this idea he has for the perfect prison system where people get put into pits and then the public gets to pee on them.
Oh wow. Okay, that's
Like just
weird.
this extremely petty bitter guy just planning just planning his stupid revenges. It's so good, it's very funny.
No, I guess I did not add them on my Goodreads, so I'll add them now. That's weird. I definitely heard of them though. I've seen them at my local bookshop. I'm like, what the hell?
Mm.
Some thick boys, man.
Yeah, no, he's also he's written so much good criticism on writing as well. Like he has lots of he has probably more nonfiction writing and essays than he does fiction. But
And then his next book he wrote, 2013 is when it got put out. Again, that is
yeah,
ridiculous. I thought McCarthy was bad. Oh, oh.
yeah, no, he such a deliberate writer, such a perfectionist with his sentences that yeah, it took him a long time. But you can tell when you're reading it, you can tell how thought out it is.
It's crazy. It's crazy,
Mm.
but also kind of impressive.
Yeah,
My God.
it's so there's also like what Joyce took 19 years to write Finnegan's Wake or something. I think Pynchon it was like it was a maybe even 10 or more years after Gravity's Rainbow before he wrote Vineland. So yeah, whenever people are complaining about authors taking too long, I'm like, don't worry, they'll get to it.
Yeah, unless you're like, oh man, unless you're like James Joyce and just go insane, or
Yeah,
not even that, Truman Capote and just go insane after a while.
yeah.
I did read In Cold Blood not too long ago, which I thought was a really good book.
I need to read that one.
It's a good nonfiction narrative.
Yeah, I really because I love like um that one's a it's like about like serial killers, right? I forget a serial killer. I can't remember.
Well, it's about two guys who try to rob a place and end up murdering a whole family. So,
Right.
not really
Yes.
serial killers, but
Yeah. Yeah. I like I don't know. I like crime. I like reading about crime.
same. I like noir a lot. I like it a lot more than the like Agatha Christie type of mysteries where like everyone's all, you know.
Mm, no,
Nothing
absolutely.
against those. She wrote some good stuff, but I don't know. I just noir just seems like I like nastier and grittier crime fiction, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I need to read more noir myself. I've got like a collection of Dashiell Hammett books that I want to read,
I
and
remember
I want
mentioning Horace McCoy. Isn't he a noir writer?
to. I don't know if he wrote any noir because I've only read his book "They Shoot Horses, Don't They?" and which I love, obviously, because I put it in my top 10 books. Um, but that one's just like a sort of an existentialist heart attack of a novel. Um,
I do like existentialism.
it's because I first learned about it. You do you know Thomas Ligotti?
Oh yes, I tried reading his the two collections that Penguin put together, and
Hmm.
I just put it up. I hope to get back to it soon. But I read one of the stories in there, and I really enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, that's a well, two great collections that book. And then, but I first learned about Horace McCoy in Ligotti's. He's got a book of philosophical pessimism called "The Conspiracy Against the Human Race,"
Yeah, I need to read
and
that. I'm probably not.
it's a great book.
I'm probably not gonna agree with it, but I'm gonna read it. at some point.
It's got some interesting points. I have my certain sympathies about like antinatalism and pessimism, although not quite as severe as Ligotti. But
So you're
it's
not planning
very
on
interesting to read
having kids?
nonetheless.
Not really into having kids.
Us, well, that's the thing. I res not to get too like dark in the chat here, but I so I resent the idea of being born
Oh, that's
because
sad.
I didn't consent to that. Nobody asked me permission, and now I have to work every day.
But you got all those great
Um,
books you gonna read, bro. It's not all bad.
but that's the other thing. I do like life. So I'm not against having kids, but a part of me completely understands the idea of um,
Oh, that's funny.
being anti-natalist. I understand it if I don't quite 100% subscribe to it.
Oh wow! So it says he read The Shadow when he was a kid. William Gass.
He what?
Oh, nothing. I'm just looking through his Wikipedia page.
He's an interesting guy, I guess.
No, yeah, I'm always looking for new books to read. Now, whenever I'll get to them, that's a whole other question.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. That's um, I have so many books that I want to read it that I don't know if I'll ever get to most of them, but hopefully. The intention is always to read them when I buy them.
Damn, I think the recognitions from William Gaddis is the one I saw in the
Hmm.
local bookstore. Where I'm like,
Yeah,
what the
I'm
fuck?
reading that at the moment.
Damn,
It
took him
is
20 years to do his second novel, and then after that it was like 10 years, and then after that was yada yada.
yeah, he did a little bit better because his other novels they get shorter. So the recognitions is it's that's his biggest, and then Jr. is that's about 700 pages, and it's almost entirely dialogue.
All
Like
right.
there's nothing else. There's no dialogue tags. It's all just pure conversation. Um, and then yeah, his other novels are quite a bit shorter.
So what are some other books you enjoy?
Oh, fantasy or just literature or anything.
Anything in general.
Um, there's a lot, I really love. Oh, right now I'm reading Clarice Lispector. Have you heard of her?
I don't think so.
She's she was a Portuguese writer, and she wrote some really wonderful things. And I'm reading her book Agua Viva at the moment, which is very slim. She writes very short novels, but they she writes with language in this very strange way,
Mm-hmm.
and she doesn't use grammar properly,
Mm-hmm.
and it's hard to explain she the way she phrases things. But there was actually problems with her whenever she was getting work translated. They would try to fix what they thought were grammar mistakes, and she'd have to be like, no, that it's meant to be that way. I know grammar. I'm not an idiot. It's I wrote it deliberately. But she writes with these very strange ideas. It's so Agua Viva that I'm reading now. It's about this painter he's become a writer, or she's become a writer, and they're trying to capture the essence of the instant of life, which is obviously impossible because time is always going. Like the instant doesn't exist anymore. Um, so it's about this writer trying to capture this like ineffable thing. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, I sometimes wonder what some of these writers like, Pension or, oh god, who else could I think of? Well, Pension's one I think of, or maybe William Get. I haven't read them, so I don't know. But Pension is one I have read. Like I
Hmm.
don't know how they do that. Like how they can just, or even Alan Moore, he wrote Jerusalem. I haven't read it yet, but I
Yeah,
don't know. I don't know how they do that. Like because I guess my mind is still on the like story structure.
yeah. So what I think what postmodernism does is it tries to capture sort of like all the ephemera of the modern world and um, all its complexity and try to condense it down into the form of a novel. And it's very interesting the way they break uh, like convention and they break traditional storytelling techniques to try and create this. I don't know. It's hard to explain, but I do. It is very fun
Maybe you
to
should do
try.
a. You should
I think it's fun at least.
again. I try not to tell people what to do, but maybe you could make a postmodernism for dummies type video, if you ever are inclined.
It's possible. I might get into it. As I've made videos, I've tried. I keep coming up with more ideas. I'm like, oh no, oh yeah. Um,
I've heard Malzahn be called postmodern. Have you heard that?
it definitely it has. I think Toll the Hounds, especially the eighth book, and that absolutely has some elements of postmodernism to it. I when I was reading that, I wanted to say it was like postmodern fantasy. It was the first postmodern fantasy novel I'd read. Um, it's very interesting the way that one's done.
Yeah, I mean, like just postmodern science fiction. Like I've heard, like like I read Light, and that was just out there, or
Mm,
Philip K. Dick, or
mm.
oh God, who else? Well, I mean Jeff VanderMeer to a lesser extent, though he's.
I think what Dead Astronauts gets pretty close.
Oh, I haven't even dared try Dead Astronauts yet. I've.
Well, I think I like that one because it's his weirdest one.
That's great. I need to read it because like I do love Vandermeer. Like anything he does, I will probably pick up at least.
Yeah, I Venomir is like an author I think I'll always really like, but I haven't quite learnt to love yet. I every one of his books I really enjoy, but they haven't grabbed me so strongly
I thought you
just
would.
yet. But I need to read more. I need to read his early novels too.
I thought you would at least enjoy the cosmic horror elements, like in
Oh,
Southern
I do.
Reach trilogy.
Like I say, I really like them, but there's just something small that's not quite getting me all the way into like becoming a full blown like Vandermeer lover.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's fair. I guess. I mean,
I'm
it's.
just I'm waiting for like one day. I think he'll fully do it. It might even be one of the books of his I haven't read yet. One day I'm going to read something by him that I just absolutely fall in love with.
That's fair, man.
Hmm.
I do like the Southern Reach trilogy a lot. I actually
Yeah,
think they're
I
great.
think Annihilation, especially, I think is such a that's a really great book. I don't think I ended up reading the last one, Acceptance.
Yeah,
I
it's
need to
pretty
go back
good.
and read the full trilogy.
It's a bit more on the experimental side. Like he uses second person in the book,
Hmm.
which that kind of threw me off. I was like, oh, okay, well, all
I
right.
quite like second person actually a lot of the time.
Really,
Uh,
like whenever I read second person, I always think I'm in like one of those like do it yourself adventure books, do your own adventure books, like
yeah,
from back in the day. Always think of that.
I quite like those books when I was growing up, so maybe that's why.
No, I like them too. It's just I always think of those when I read like a second person book.
Yeah, no, I think a second person narration when it's done right, it can be really really phenomenal. It might even be my favorite perspective when it's done its best. Um, but yeah, I need to reread the Southern Reach trilogy because I really liked Authority. I love well didn't
I
I
actually
really
have
liked Annihilation
I
and I
actually
liked Authority a little bit less. I never got to Acceptance.
oh really? That's I actually have a little bit of a spicy take.
Mm.
I actually like Authority a little bit more than Annihilation.
Oh, really?
I enjoy Annihilation a lot, but I don't know. It's just well, that's kind of surprised you like a little. There's spy stuff in that book.
Well, that's the thing. That's I read it. I read it. I think before I became really into spy stuff.
Oh, okay.
So
Oh my god.
I now I need to go back and read it. I think I might like it more.
No, but like I really like I liked a lot of the politicking and also just
Mm.
how you could feel the they don't call it the I'm thinking of the movie. but Area X is like encroaching on them, and people are just kind of going. It's like a slowly they're going crazy, and I love it.
Yeah,
It's great.
I think when I read Authority, I wasn't as into Stranger Things as I am now. Not Stranger Things, the TV show,
No,
but
no, I hear you.
I wasn't as into weird storytelling as much as I am now. So that's why I think if I go back, I will like Authority probably more, and I might even like Annihilation more. I might be more primed to like it now.
Oh, I enjoy Annihilation a lot. I think it's one of the best sci-fi books of our century. Though there might be,
I
though I have heard people be like, "Oh, what about Alistair Reynolds or Adrian Tchaikovsky?" I haven't read those guys, so I don't know.
well, I read what I've tried reading Children of Time. I did not like that. Um,
Oh no, I've heard a lot of. I have friends on BookTube who really like Tchaikovsky a lot.
yeah, everyone seems to like him. I want to try reading his fantasy one day, but I didn't like his science fiction at the very least.
I heard
But
there's sentient spiders in it.
yeah, so it's just I don't know. It's just tracking like this the well, I don't know. I didn't get all the way through the book, but the start of it at least, it's like going through the life cycle and the history of these like sentient spiders, and I don't care that much. I was like, yeah, all right, whatever, we get it. The spiders are hunting now. I don't know.
All
The
right.
the spiders are going through the evolutionary cycle. Yeah, all right.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things I like about your channel that I've watched so far is that you do have a versatile reading list, which is nice. That's like you. I wanted to talk about books I felt weren't really being talked about as much on
Mm,
BookTube. So you know.
yeah, I'm trying to keep the focus. I don't know if I'm actually succeeding so far, but I'm trying to keep the focus towards fantasy and science fiction.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but through the lens of someone who does read uh, a lot of literary fiction and stuff like that, because I don't know, I think the bubble of um, like fantasy booktube at the moment, it is very people reading the same stuff,
Mm-hmm.
people reading the same authors. They're not necessarily going out there and reading some. It's not that they're unwilling to read other authors. It's just that they're not really introduced to them so much. So maybe I
That's a
want to
good
bring some
point.
discussion of some fantasy authors that they have on. I want them to read KJ Bishop and M. John Harrison, and I want them to read Samuel Delaney and Michael Swanwick or more Gene Wolfe stuff like that.
Yeah, I know. Gene Wolfe wrote a lot. I looked at his Goodreads page. It is
Hmm.
ridiculous.
He wrote a lot of books, and not all of them were great, but he did write a lot of great books. But that's the thing I've noticed, like I don't get it when some people they'll love a book by an author, but they won't read the other work. Like um, like Mike's book reviews, for instance, his favorite book of all time is Dune, and he talks about Dune all the time. But as far as I can tell, he's never read any Frank Herbert outside of Dune. And Frank Herbert wrote so much, you
I
know.
couldn't. I couldn't. I couldn't do it with Dune. Just wasn't
You
for me.
didn't like Dune?
Again, that might be one I try again to see if I mean I did a review of it because I felt strongly enough where I'm like, okay, I could get away with saying I didn't care for this book, but
Hmm.
I was kind of like, yeah. I mean, there's some great stuff in here, but just wasn't hitting me. Also,
I'm
I
not.
read it
I'm not
during
terribly.
I read it during COVID time, and I was really depressed during that time, so that probably didn't help matters. But um, yeah, just I wasn't feeling that book.
I would like to read more of the Dune books. I wasn't terribly enamored with it. I quite like the movies, though. I think the movies do a better job of. I really like Dune Part Two, especially the. I love how strange that one feels.
Yeah, I thought they were. I thought I haven't watched the second one, but I saw the first one in theaters, and I was like, all right, yeah. Though I felt about the same as I felt with the book. I'm like, yeah, this is really well done, but
Hmm. Yeah, that's fair enough.
Not really feeling it.
But like,
I
yeah,
like Denis Villeneuve a lot. I think he's a great director, but like I was just like,
mm,
all right, yeah, they did it. I was impressed they did it because like it's a big boy. It's got a lot
very
of
very
stuff going on.
impressive film. Yeah,
But I'm like, oh
yeah.
man,
But I don't know. But yeah, like I say, Frank Herbert, he has so many books that aren't Dune related. Like he has
yeah,
a shit ton of books, but nobody ever talks about them, and I just wonder why.
probably because Dune took off and he just tapped that
Yeah.
vein. Yeah,
But then,
it's
like,
like
yeah, so it's a similar thing with Gene Wolfe as well. People only ever talk about Book of the New Sun, but he has so much good stuff outside of that. So it's like let's read some more.
yeah,
Read some of his other
I have a
books.
friend named Owen who really likes Gene Wolfe, and he covers a lot of his books on his channel.
Hmm.
Owen Edwards. Um,
That's I'll look into him because yeah, I want to see more people talking about Gene Wolfe, especially outside of Book of the New Sun.
yeah, though a lot of people are like, man, Book of the New Sun. I have heard Black Leopard, Red Wolf be compared to Wolf, which makes me feel
Hmm.
a little better about trying more of his work. I'm like, okay, well, I loved Black Leopard, Red Wolf, so maybe I have a chance with Gene Wolfe, even though I didn't care for
I
the Land. That book was so like that book was so just. You'll have to see it for yourself, but I read it about
hmm.
God 7 years ago now, and I barely remember anything about it. But yeah, but after hearing people compare it favorably to Gene Wolfe, I'm like, or well, Black Leopard Red Wolf, that is. I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, maybe I got a chance here.
Yeah. Well, like I say, I think you should definitely give him another go, especially at Book of the New Sun because it's so praised. At least give the first one a go, and if you don't like that, he's probably not for you. But he's worth it. He's one of my favorite authors, I think.
Well, I have heard his books are kind of like puzzles, and I like puzzles, so.
Yeah, his books they're sort of to me they're like well, yeah, so in my video where I talk about weird fiction, I quote um, from M. John Harrison's book, "Wish I Was Here," which is sort of like an anti-memoir he wrote, and he talks about weird fiction and how it should be sort of like a puzzle that almost fits together but doesn't quite, and that's what Gene Wolfe is for me. I think you spend so much time considering how it all fits together, and it's almost quite there. You almost made sense of it, but it's just a little bit. The truth is just a little bit out of reach, and
Yeah,
that's what makes it feel really special.
I mean, my favorite fantasy novel, at least right now, is American Gods. Now,
Hmm.
I would say it's considerably more popular than something like Black Leopard, Red Wolf, but that's still a pretty unusual choice. Like a lot of
I
people are
think,
like, and don't get me wrong, I like Game of Thrones and The First Law a lot. Those are great series. I think they're both really good. But
hmm,
again, I try to talk about less talked about books.
yeah, absolutely. I think Neil Gaiman's kind of a funny one because once again he's super popular, but he is also quite weird himself, and he's such a champion of weird books as well. You know, you'll
Mm-hmm.
pick up so many re-releases of a weird fiction book these days, and 90% of the time Neil Gaiman has written a foreword for it.
Oh yeah, that's why I find him really fascinating. I think he is truly a student of the genre, which is what
Absolutely, but
which is where I think the best fantasy really comes from. Is you have to know it before you really write it, which is why I'm
yeah,
always really harping on people to read more than just the popular stuff.
absolutely. That's why I like channels like Jimmy Nuts as well because or the Fantasy Network because he's been getting into some of the outer reaches of fantasy and stuff with his reading.
Yeah, I remember when he read Perdido Street Stations, like, oh fuck yeah! And then I had him on my channel. And we talked about it. It was great. I enjoyed myself a lot.
Yeah, he's a great guy, and I really like what he's been. I just the last couple of years, he's been reading so much more stuff that's sort of out of the general uh, talking sphere of BookTube, and
Dude, I did
yeah,
see he read A Little Life, which I haven't read, but I've heard it's like bleak misery porn. So I don't know if you've read it.
yeah, I've read A Little Life.
What'd you think of
I
it?
I hate that book.
What was it? Was it bleak misery porn like people were saying, or was it
Yeah,
something else?
it is. So I do talk about that actually. I bring that up in my weird fiction video,
No,
um, as a way of how not to write.
how not to write.
Um,
That's great.
she just is because so Hanya Yanagihara, the way she writes is she. Oh wait, sorry. I have to bringing back to Toni Morrison.
Hmm.
Toni Morrison in the afterword for her novel The Bluest Eye, she talks about how she felt the novel was a failure because readers pitied the main character instead of, say, feeling anger um, or reflecting on their own behaviors and how society treats black people,
Hmm.
especially like a little black girl.
Hmm.
So she talks about how she felt the novel was a failure because people pitied the character instead of feeling something else. Um, Meanwhile, Hanya Yanagihara, I think she only wants you to feel pity for the main character as she makes him go through the worst things imaginable. And I think
Also, where
that's
she
like,
like doesn't she kind of like talks shit about psychiatry or something?
yeah. So yeah, apparently she said she didn't learn anything about psychology or psychiatry, and she was like, some people are just meant to die or something. I don't know. I haven't paid a lot of attention, but she said some kind of fucked up things.
Yeah, that is weird.
So to me, a little life is just like it's a carrot on a stick for the reader to get more of the misery porn. Um,
It's like those people who
Instead
think
of
that
treating it
just
with any sort of respect or reverence,
it's for
you
people
know?
who think that like only bleak stuff is true art, you know? Like
Yeah. So it's I don't yeah I don't like that book at all.
oh man, that's funny. I'm always looking for new books to read though. And I like books that play with form as well. I think, or genre even. Though I'm more of a
Hmm.
play with genre guy. I can only go so far before which is why I'm also hesitant to read House of Leaves because I've flipped through it and my god, the
So
styling on that book is so out there. I'm like, what is this?
I want to say House of Leaves isn't as intimidating as it first looks, because I think about it from the reverse. Because I was when I first flipping through it, I got so excited
Really?
because I saw the little windows of like reversed text and all the marginalia in some pages,
Uh huh.
and I was like, oh, this is going to be so fun to read through because that stuff really excites me. But then when I got to those sections, it turns out you don't really need to pay attention to any of that stuff. It's mostly just inconsequential lists of random things that don't mean much.
Well, that's kind of
So
sad.
yeah, I was a little bit disappointed by it in that sense, but it's good in other ways. Um,
Nice.
but books that play with genre, I think you might not like An Evil Guest by Gene Wolfe. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that if you're still on the fence about Gene Wolfe, but that one's a really fun one playing this genre. It plays with fantasy, sci-fi, horror, like pulp noir fiction, and it just sort of juggles them all and bounces between them. It's really, really interesting.
I like the sound of that, for sure.
You might like it, but it's sort of deliberately unsatisfying as well
Hmm. All right.
because it's so it presents itself as like
so
a
so
straightforward plot boiler, but it's hard to explain.
so you're saying then it's well going back to House of Leaves. So you're saying the House of Leaves is more accessible than it looks.
Yeah, I think so. It's quite easy to read. It's just it because it's got two parallel storylines going on at the same time. If you don't like one of those storylines, it might just be harder to read just because it's a little bit I don't know, you're just not interested.
Yeah, it was well, I guess I feel a little better then, but I'm still probably gonna wait a little bit before I get to that book because it's
Hmm.
again. I have so many, dude. Like I'm hoping to get the Lonesome Dove this year.
Lonesome Dove's good.
I've heard. Like I said in my video I put out recently. Like that's one everyone and their grandma tells me to go freaking read.
I think you yeah, because you were saying in your video you've never heard anyone say anything bad about it, and I think I'm the same. I don't think I've ever amongst all readers, even the most literary readers, no one said anything negative about Lonesome Dove.
Yeah, I'm like, all right, I'm a little suspicious, but I'm curious to see what I'll think of this book.
And I don't like, obviously it's kind of hard when everybody hypes something up and then it doesn't meet your expectations.
Mm-hmm.
But if do you do audio much?
Sometimes, like I listened to I physically read the first law, but I also listened to it on audiobook, and I really liked it a lot. But I've also listened to Lolita on audio because Jeremy Irons did a great reading of it. Well, Jeremy Irons, he has a great voice. So
Yeah. So yeah, audio is always a mixed bag because the narrator can really
also I
kill
get
an
really
experience.
I get distracted really easily. So what are you gonna say about the audiobook? But
the audiobook for Lonesome Dove is my favorite audiobook of all time because it's I can't remember. I'm gonna look it up actually. The guy who narrated it, he's sorry. He wasn't an audiobook narrator. He was an actor, and this was the only audiobook he ever done. Lee Horsley. Have you heard of him?
I have not.
Anyway, I don't know what it is, but his narration is so good. To me, I can't imagine reading Lonesome Dove without hearing his voice. I would just highly recommend if Lonesome Dove is very long, it might be good to go along with the audio of it as well.
Well, I've heard
just
it's
because,
accessible, so that's good. It definitely makes it more. It's I just kind of want to finish the other chunky book I'm reading right now before I kind of get to that one.
Yeah, it's it is very accessible, but the audiobook especially, I really love the audiobook. And it's not often I'd recommend the audiobook over just physically reading something, but yeah, it was a special experience, I think.
Yeah, I've heard it's like again. I haven't heard it. I'm not being like for real. I'm not being like facetious. Like I don't think I've heard anyone say a bad thing about that book. I really don't.
Yeah, me neither. Oh, I'm sure, but if you went to Goodreads, there'd
well, I was
probably
about to
be
say, I'm
plenty
sure
of one-star reviews.
there has to be some who don't like it, but I haven't
Yeah.
heard it yet.
But I think you'd probably like it. It's hard. I think if you want to dislike it, like unless you have very specific tastes, it's hard to dislike it. Like it's just a very likable book.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to reading it because it sounds like a book I would enjoy a lot.
Absolutely, no,
Also,
it's
apparently
good.
he does slice of life very well, so I mean, all right, I'll read that.
Yeah, no, great book. I read that last year. Great book.
Well, it's good to know that you also enjoy it because I mean, from what I've gathered in this conversation, you're a little hipsterish at times.
Yeah, I don't try to be. I guess it's just my nature, though. Because, like I say, I want to like everything.
I'm the same way. Yeah.
I like, I try to read popular books that I think I like. Because, I said this before that Sanderson doesn't quite work for me, but I still read. I've read quite a bit of Sanderson, and I know why people like him and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I try. Because I try my best not to seem like an elitist or something.
Well, no. I mean, you're definitely unconventional. I don't see a lot of people talk about like Ulysses on YouTube too much.
That's another thing. Because, I don't know. People just have this idea that these books are for like super pretentious or for really snobby people. I'm like, I just want to emphasize like these things they're fun. They're interesting. At least they are to me. And you don't see people often talking about these kinds of books from that perspective, and I want people to.
Yeah, no, I hear you, man. I mean, that's why I did a Black Leopard Red Wolf review. I'm like, I want more people to read it. I
Yeah,
mean,
exactly.
even though like it's a very niche kind of book because it's an African inspired fantasy, and it really leans into the African mythology. So there's a lot of people who might not get it, and
Mm,
so it's definitely a cult book. So I'll put it
yeah,
this way: I like a lot of cult books. Like
absolutely. Yeah,
it's
me
kind of my
too.
specialty.
And I don't know. I think sometimes people get too caught up in the right way to approach something. But in my experience, and I think in a lot of people's experience, like sometimes you just start with what is considered the wrong choice,
Uh,
and that's how you get into something. Like I grew up reading fantasy like Lord of the Rings, and did you ever read Del Toro Quest and stuff like that? Um,
that does not sound familiar to me.
it's an Australian series, so it might not be well known elsewhere. But it's like a big popular kids series of fantasy. But like the first fantasy, like adult fantasy book I really read outside the Lord of the Rings, like I said, was the Shadow of the Torturer by Gene Wolfe,
Mm.
and that's not a conventional choice for your first foray into like mature fantasy. But for me, that's what made me love it so much, is how strange it was. And I think I don't know, yeah, like people would never recommend, hey, start reading fantasy with Gene Wolfe. But
Yeah, yeah.
I think if it interests you, maybe just go for it. Just try it, you know?
And if you don't like it,
And
that's
if you don't
fine.
like it, you don't like it.
Yeah.
But sometimes I don't know, sometimes I think it's good to start with the wrong choice.
Well, I will say at least Marlon James beat out A Little Life, so for the Booker Prize because apparently it was.
Oh yeah. Well, I, I don't hold a particularly high opinion of the Booker Prize, but it does. A Little Life didn't deserve it.
Yeah, no, it's. I mean, I haven't read it, but like mostly most of the stuff. That's another one where it seems like it's a love it or hate it kind of book.
Yeah.
Either like because the worst things I've heard about it is either it's misery porn or it fetishizes trauma, and that might be those are probably synonyms, but
Mm,
I'm sure you get what I mean.
yeah. Um, yeah. I think the people who like reading it, it's just.
Maybe
I
it's
don't actually know.
cathartic.
I don't know. You have to be a certain kind of person to want to buy a book because you think it'll make you feel pity, I guess.
When I read dark books, I often look for catharsis. Because I'm like, oh no,
Yeah.
I'm not the only person who's felt this way, but I have my limits. I've heard people call The Road misery porn. I'm like, it is not freaking misery porn, but whatever.
Yeah, no, I don't think. I think the road's more complex than that.
I mean, you could
And
call
look,
you could
I
probably
like my fair.
you could probably say Blood Meridian is misery porn, but even then, like I don't know if it doesn't
Yeah,
fetishize the misery. It's more like it's like wow, this is messed up.
I think the Blood Meridian's more like a document as opposed to a fetishization.
Yeah, yeah. That's funny.
Um,
I was even talking about characterization the other day, and I'm like, there's different ways of doing it than just the Joe Abercrombie
hmm,
internalizement type of style. There's nothing wrong with that. I really like Joe Abercrombie. But like take like Blood Meridian. When we first meet Judge Holden, he just randomly ruins this priest's life and convinces
yeah,
everyone that he's like a rapist, and then it turns out
hmm,
he made it up. He just made it up. Like that tells you everything you need to know about who that guy is.
yeah.
Like,
I think I've been reading. So I'm reading The Master of Whitespawn by Jenny West at the moment as well, and she does great characterization in that without doing any internalization, and she shows you who these characters are by excluding any internalization. So like
and there's nothing
is
wrong with
basically what she's
internalization.
not telling you. It's telling you more. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with internalization. I mean,
Oh
there's
yeah,
plenty
no,
of books I've read that done it, and they're really good. So I mean, there's nothing wrong with
yeah,
it.
yeah. So like it just depends on what the style you're going for, but I think I tend to prefer books. I think internalization it's a bit too of much of a default for a lot of modern fantasy. People just sort of
Yeah, the
yeah, they just
cult, the
default
or
to
the
it, and then
cult of
it becomes kind of a
Abercrombie,
crutch.
or the cult of Martin, because I guess Martin was one of the first who really did that.
Yeah.
You know, I want to reread Game of Thrones again, the series. I don't know when another one of those. I don't know when I'm gonna do it, but I'd love to do it because I was reading through some of it the other day. There was some stuff in there I forgot. You know, like
Hmm.
there's one particular one that stuck out to me is like when Jamie is trying to like calm everyone down after Rob's dead, and he's basically rediscovering what it means to be a knight, and he's like, and he's like Golden Hand. They'll call you Golden Hand the Just, and I'm like, this is great. Well, how did I forget about this?
Yeah.
What?
A,
What?
a Song of Ice and Fire is really fantastic. It's for such a popular series. I think it has like a lot of depth and value to it that you might not get with a lot of modern fantasy. I want to reread A Song of Ice and Fire all the time. Every time someone mentions it, I'm like, oh yeah, I should read Game of Thrones again.
Yeah, I know. It's oh man, it's such a great book. It's a great
Really, really
series.
good.
I really hope he puts out Winds of Winter at some point. I'd love that.
I have hope for Winds of Winter. I don't necessarily know if we'll get A Dream of Spring. Um, but some people act like he's like on his deathbed, but he's not. He's got a solid 20 years left in him.
Yeah. Oh man, that's so true. Oh. Yeah, though he doesn't have that many years to live though, so I can see why some people might be getting worried.
Yeah, but then also I'm not terribly like I'm not fascinated with endings per se. So like obviously an ending would be good, but if we never got another Song of Ice and Fire book, I would still want to keep rereading that series, you know?
Yeah, yeah, I hear you. It's though it would suck if we didn't get an ending though, because I do want
Yeah,
because maybe it's because I have autism, but I like completing things.
right. I'm kind of the opposite. So I think because of I have autism, I don't care about completing things.
Maybe I don't know. That's
I
maybe.
really like the I like the conceptual idea of something unfinished. I don't know what it is.
I mean, that's
It
the
really
nice thing
appeals to me.
about something like Black Leopard Red Wolf. It's like that's the whole story. Now the next one will be the same story, just from a different perspective. So
Hmm.
I'm looking forward to it.
I think I've just always preferred beginnings to endings.
Well, yeah, it's harder to end something than it is to begin something.
Sure.
Though, I mean, I've still yet to read Malazan, so I don't know.
I think
I've
you
heard a
should
lot of
definitely.
people quit at book one, so
I
I
think
hate it
they
when
quit a
people go.
bit
I
book
hate it.
one just because so much stuff's going on.
I
But
hate it.
it's.
Or, I'm sorry, you finish your thought.
Sorry, you go on.
I was just saying, like, I hate it when people go like, "Oh, there's a character and he's in like a page, but in like book two he plays like a big part." I'm like, I don't freaking care about that. I just want to read the book.
Yeah.
Let me experience
No.
it, man. Or wait till the second book it gets really good. I'm like, dude, come on.
I think Malazan starts out strong. My only issue with the first book is mainly his writing is not quite as sharp as it is in the other books. Um, he just like it's not his prose in the second book is really phenomenal, whereas in the first book it's just pretty good, if that makes sense. It's
All
just
right,
but when it comes to plot and stuff, I think the first book is really fun.
I'll have to. Well, again, I'll have to see it for myself whenever I get there. I'm probably. I am considering starting it next year. I'm trying to kind of keep it on the down low because I'm trying not to get everyone super like, oh my god, Britton, you're gonna do it, and
Yeah. Well,
I
look,
can
I
just
think it's
I can see all the comments being like, oh my god, Britton, you're really doing it. And I'm like, but I'm trying to keep it on the down low. So
well, like I say, the books each one has its own sort of contained plot, so you could just read the first one and feel pretty satisfied, even if you don't read any of the rest. because even the main plot of the entire series doesn't even really pop up until I want to say 4 or 5 books in.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, I've been going for a while, and I mean, I've enjoyed this conversation a lot. But
Me too.
I do have to go. It is getting pretty late where I'm at.
Yeah,
But this has been fun though. This has been great. Maybe I'll have you on
yeah,
again.
man.
We can talk about a book or something.
Absolutely.
But yeah, thanks, Micah, for coming on here. This was a lot of fun.
Thanks for having me.
If you have any social media you'd like to share before we're out of here, feel free to share.
Yeah, just you can find me on Twitter at I believe it's just Micah S Vernon. Um, my Discord and my YouTube. I actually don't know. I don't know my YouTube or my Discord, but they're easy enough to find on my channel.
Well, it says
Um,
it says habitual blood, so maybe we'll go with
yeah, habitual blood. That's actually from a William H. Gass quote.
Oh God, that's great.
I always like that phrase, so I just use it for everything now.
Yeah, but no, really, it's been fun. I've enjoyed this conversation a lot. So,
Me too. Me too.
yeah. Oh, jeez. Let me get this. My mouse died on me again. So just keep bullshitting here for a few minutes. But again, it's been fun. There's probably dozens of other things I didn't bring up in this conversation that maybe I'll look up. I always do. This always happens. I'll like watch something later. I'm like, damn it, forgot to bring that up.
Yeah,
That
well,
shows you how good of a conversation you're having. You get lost in it.
yeah, and as always, there's always going to be more things to talk about. Whenever I'm watching Jimmy Nuts' conversations, I'm always like, I wish that went 2 hours longer.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, anyway, thank you, Micah, for coming on here, and we should do this again at some point.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Damn it. It's freaking this mouse is killing me here. But we are still recording. But yeah, no, really, we should do this again. This was fun. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen.
Bye bye.